I'm going to see how well I can do this podcast in 10 minutes or less. I've got my family hanging out in the next room. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to talk. I'm going to do it. I am preparing for the transparency. Something crazy happened in the kitchen. I've been preparing for the retreat. It's a week from today. I am so excited to gather together with other women to talk all about teenagers. And can I come here? Yes, I can. See, isn't that funny? I'll try to record and the family, something crazy happens. Kelly,
Can I close it now?
I mean,
I don't know how else to clean it up.
I'll just say it's something that's never happened to you before. So, we got all the paper though.
Yes.
I feel like we need to at least do some paper towel.
Oh my gosh.
It's already baking on there.
I know. I will clean out the oven later, but
Once it's not burning.
all right. Well, see how that turns out. Yay! It's all good.
luckily I listened to a talk today about laughing at things.
Yay!
All right, let's see. That was pretty fun and exciting. A little baking mishap. Anyway, validating your teenagers. So a couple things. Like I said, I'm working on the retreat. We're doing workshops at the retreat. I got a workbook that we're working through. One of the main workshops that we're talking about is validating your teenager. And I actually brought that up on an Instagram live that I did the other day. It was, hey, I've heard to validate my teenager. I say things like, I'm sorry you're upset. I'm sorry you feel that way. I can't remember exactly what the person said. And the teenager said, why are you talking like that? I hate it. Or something like that. So here's the deal. Becoming trusted by your teenager is an art. It is a practice. It is nuance. It is taking feedback and rolling with it and trial and error. See what works best. So this mom was saying, I'm doing what I'm hearing people tell me to do, and it's not working. And one thing that I learned from a book years ago, so it started with the book How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And then they made the teen version, How to Talk So Teens Will Listen. And what it says is validate with one word or two. In this instance, what I think of is they say something like, I can't believe my teacher did this, or I'm so annoyed with you, or I can't believe I have to do my jobs. Validating isn't agreeing. I think that's something that's often a misconception about validation is you don't have to agree with your teenager when they're annoyed, and you don't have to bring in the toxic positivity or the silver lining. I think most parents are like, oh, my teenager's complaining. This is the time to teach and infuse with them that they have a great life and that there's starving children in Africa, which a lot of people don't like that phrase. I made a reel about that a couple of years ago. But I think a lot of times it takes parents, and I do air quotes for those of you who are listening, parents seem to see a time when a child's complaining to help them see how good of a life that they have. And there is a time for that, but in the moment when they're flooded with emotions, whatever it may be, validate. And a good way to validate, especially if your child's not liking what you're saying already, validate with one word answer. Like, that's frustrating. That stinks. That's a bummer. If you can just think of those simple words, they feel seen, they feel understood, they feel like they're not crazy for having this experience, and they feel that you see them, and it builds trust. It puts drops in that trust bucket. So think about how you can best validate your teenager when they're frustrated, and it hurts. I would say when they're throwing bombs at you, it hurts more than if they're throwing bombs at a friend or a teacher or something else. And so it is harder to validate, but when you can just say, that stinks, that's a bummer, the simplicity, and sometimes they're going to be like, oh, why can't you say more, right? So it could be you have a child that's wants to actually hear the full thoughtfulness behind how to validate. But I think, like I said, a lot of times teenagers think that you don't understand And so when you try to infuse life skills and try to infuse like how lucky you are, it feels invalidating. And I mean, imagine yourself saying like, oh my gosh, I got pulled over and the police officer, he was so rude. And if your spouse or somebody said to you, well, were you speeding? Well, yeah, but it was frustrating, right? I mean, like nobody wants to kind of be caught in the fact of, think of it could have been worse, right? You never want to say it could have been worse. So much about this trusted experience is it could have been worse. And so I'm also doing the trusted challenge. By the time this airs, I'm doing it this week. And I've been doing it once a month. So if you have a thought like, oh, I want to learn more skills, like if this resonates with you with the validation, if you feel like I'm doing pretty good, I feel like I'm a pretty good mom, and I have room for growth. I actually did trying to find my book. I did what's it called? An Instagram live with Eli from Attachment Nerd. And she wrote this book all about attachment, which I think is so great. And I'm not going to bring that up right now, but one of the things that she said in the book that I circled that I wanted to share today is, she said, the most profound gift we can give our children is our own growth. Even if it's clunky and awkward. And I love that so much because everything that I've created, both in the Transform Retreat and in the Trusted Challenge, and eventually in Team Trusted, if that's something that you feel like resonates with you, is recognizing every single person in this world is imperfect. We are learning, we are hopefully growing. And if you're at a place where you're like, I'm in a pretty good spot with my teenager, that's awesome. And there's always room for growth. There's always room to preempt that growth with learning in advance. There's always room to look inside yourself and say, what can I do differently? Because you can't control your teenager. You can only control yourself. And when you learn tools to become trusted by the way you react, by the things that you say, by the way you respond, drops trust. I'm talking about the trust bucket here, which is what I talk about in the Trusted Challenge. So when I said that a minute ago, you're probably like, what? Trust bucket? But when you practice these skills, when you accept that you're always learning and growing, that you don't take it personally when your teenager offers you feedback, it is all a practice. And in the Trusted Challenge is the foundation to that, which we eventually, if you choose to take it on to Team Trusted, where we work together as a team. And it's such a beautiful experience to come together with other people that are on the trusted journey saying, hey, I recognize I'm not perfect. I got room for growth. And like Eli was saying, the most profound gift we can give our children is our own growth. Give that gift to your children. Give it to them as a teenager. If they're a young adult, it carries on into the adult years. I was actually just talking to someone today who was telling me about how he grew up in Brazil, and his dad was physical, as many parents in our day and age were, and his dad was even more physical. And he talked a lot about his own growth process and how he's seen his dad's growth process, even though he is an adult. He's a little bit younger than me, so let's just roughly say late 30s, early 40s. And so his dad's in his 70s, and he's learning and growing. And it's hard. It's really difficult the later we get in life. The earlier we learn, the better. So that's my challenge to you. As we circle back to this validation thing, think about how you can better validate your teenager. You don't have to agree with them. Think about how you can validate them with short, one-word answers, and consider joining our next Trusted Challenge. I'm doing it the first week of every month. I think it's October 7th. If you have missed this September challenge, it's never too early to learn and grow and improve, not just for your teenager, but for yourself too. I've been in a personal growth coaching program, and the overarching message is, what is your authentic self? Choose to be your authentic self, no matter what anybody else is doing or saying around you. And that's what I strive for every day. And growth is hard. I'm not gonna lie, growth is hard, and it is worth it. So that's my challenge to you. I'll leave some links in the show notes. Grateful that you're here to learn how to become trusted by your teenager. You got this.